What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Review for Solo Leveling. This is going to be a review of both episodes 10 and 11, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah. So this, of course, is I would say is the official start of the Jeju Raid arc, where of course all the major S rank hunters from both Japan and South Korea are working together to liberate the island from the giant ants. Of course, episode 10 first starts off with a sparring session between four of each S rank hunters of their respective countries, and Japan, somewhat had the upper hand, but I think like the two most I think the two of South Korea's best hunters, like Baek Yunho and Cha Hain, were able to hold off some of the Japanese hunter better than the other two. So I mean, some of the Japanese hunters, like one in particular, that guy with a face mask and eye patch, obviously, like he's just, I don't know, he just acts like he's scared and stuff, but when he's pushed to the limit, he just goes all full psycho on Chahain.
Yeah, he tries to attack her, and then of course he's stopped by Jinwoo, which there's like a brief fight between them. And of course in this episode, I think this is like one of the few times we actually see like Chahain use her abilities, and also in the next episode we see more of that.
Yeah.
Like the weapon she uses, I guess she uses some kind of like a rapier or something.
Yeah, this is like the only time we've ever get to see her fight ever since the show started. I mean,
Yeah.
She's mostly just had like a lot of anime original dialogue scenes. Even during season 1, they've been showing her and the other S rank hunters. But yeah, this is the first time we really get to see Chahain in action, and why they, call her, why she's nicknamed the Dancer. Of course, soon after that interruption, Goto Ryuji ends up challenging Jinu to a one-on-one sparring match, and Ryuji asked Jinu to try to go all out, but of course throughout the entire fight, Jinu was kind of on the defensive. He doesn't bring out his shadows. He kind of holds back just a little bit before he decides to, maybe he will go all out before all the hunters restrain them both before things got out of hand.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, I guess Ryuji can sense how powerful he is.
Yeah.
Because in the next episode, he even recalls that, I guess just how powerful Shinwoo is.
Yeah. There's one one thing I want to point out, in the manhwa, is even though Ryuji can sense how powerful Jinu is, there was one panel that they didn't include in the anime, in which it shows that Ryuji was kind of shaking in fear of Jinu's abilities, but it didn't. When I looked at it, it just didn't even make any sense, just because Jinu didn't even technically go all out in that fight, and it just seemed out of character for Ryuji to act that way at the moment, because if say if Jinu did bring out all of his shadows, bring out his weapons, go full power, then it would have made sense. But it just didn't seem right at the moment for him to act that way. So I'm kind of glad that they pulled it out of there.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that doesn't. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me either.
Yeah. So, but in the end, Jinu gives Chairman Go his answer of whether or not if he should participate in the raid, and of course he refuses to participate in the raid because he feels like all the hunters of both Japan and Korea are capable enough of taking on the island by themselves.
Well, and we see how quickly that ends up not being true.
No, I mean, okay, so the one big thing that ends up happening is the ant queen gives birth to a more powerful more humanoid ant king. What he's dubbed the Ant King. Let's just call him that.
Yeah, I mean he's the only one of them, I guess, that can walk on two legs.
Yeah. So it's so pretty much when both countries end up arriving at the island, like not only just the S ranks, but pretty much all the other hunters, A rank and below, like all the previous A ranks we've seen in previous episodes, like from the what was it the High Orc dungeon, the Red Gate incident. We see Jinu's old friends, Juhi and his old mentor, um, from that double dungeon incident. It was, and also Song Yi was also involved there as well. Of course, they're like most of them are like taking defensive positions mostly on battleships, and some uh are like taking defensive positions in the mainline too.
Yeah. Yeah, so at the beginning, I guess, of this raid on Jeju Island, it seems fairly one-sided. Like all the hunters just seem to end up like slaughtering the ants. But things quickly take a turn for the worse because because of there is some like at the time at least some unseen force that is killing off the hunters. As we see at the end of episode 10, like one of the hunters ends up just getting beheaded. Which in the next episode, we see even more hunters just are getting beheaded by just this unseen force. At least at the time, we don't know who's doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like all pretty much like much of the Japanese hunters, particularly the S rank hunters, get killed off, and some of them off screen too. Which,
Yeah.
would have to say it looked a little bit more gruesome, like in some of the manhwa panels. I mean, they did unfortunately ended up cutting some scenes. Maybe for time, I would say it's mostly due to time constraints because much of like what this Ant King does to the S rank hunters is just very visceral.
So I guess it's not just beheadings in the
I mean,
source material.
you saw one, like there was just like one scene we saw in this episode where the guy's like not just like one guy's beheaded, but his entire jaw like gets completely ripped off, by this thing.
Well, I mean, there are some. I mean, there are some things like that happen later to some of the other, like I guess the more prominent hunters,
Yeah.
like when they encounter this thing, and like what it does to them.
Yeah. But we do cut back to the Korean S rank hunters, and they're mostly handling themselves fine, by taking out a lot of much of the ant army inside the caves, and dealing with the Ant Queen. And Cha-Hain, like, and I would say like it reminds me a lot of like the Levi sequence of like going for the legs and then beheading the thing soon afterwards. But then things, of course, turn for the worst when the Ant King appears in front of the S rank hunters.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of surprised at how easily they seem to take down the queen, and of course, things seem to be going well. But then once this thing shows up, all of them end up getting they end up either getting killed or I'm not sure. Some of them might not be dead, but they get messed up pretty bad. I mean, Cha-Hain, for instance, gets like it seems like she got launched into a pillar, and then like how we see what happened to her later. Like it looked like a chunk of her got taken out or something.
I think I think mostly her left arm was broken from that attack, and then Ma's like, what was it, that the guy who can like turn into a giant like Ma, like gets both of his arms ripped off before Byung-gu ends up healing both of his arms again. But everybody else, Beck gets slashed multiple times. I mean, I forgot to mention that Beck can transform himself into a white tiger beast.
Yeah.
But even that is not enough to deal with against the Ant King. What was it? But yeah, everyone just easily just gets one-shotted at each point. Like Ma, even with him getting healed numerous times, he gets he gets beaten down multiple times, including getting what was it, those so, similar to what the Hulk did to Loki in Avengers, in which he just swings his body and slams into the ground multiple times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, the other thing I guess the Ant King can do is like I guess well at first it seemed like he can just mimic voices because he speaks in the voice of what was it Beck's dead friend.
yeah,
And then he can I guess he can actually talk because he has he says things I guess in his own voice after that.
yeah. But yeah, he ends up killing Byung-gu by not only impaling him but pretty much biting his entire head off. And I
Yeah.
I am essentially just, I guess, using that to speak a human language now. And then of course he confronts Yunho, like asking who is your king, but he doesn't get that answer until he senses someone more powerful outside the cave, which uh, he pretty much immediately just rushes out and then just kills one more Japanese S rank hunter and confronts Gyoto Ryuji. But actually, before this, we learn that the Japanese hunters and their higher ups have ulterior motives of why they're in Jeju in the first place.
Yeah, didn't they say that they were going to, I guess, retreat and then take credit for what happened there,
Yeah.
something like
So,
that?
I mean, they didn't really care much about like all the losses they sustained. I mean, they lost like almost half their S rank hunters, but they didn't really much care for, not only for their own hunters, but they don't really much care for for the Korean hunters as well, because they considered them expendable. And they wanted Goto and their whatever's left of their S rank unit to retreat and like regroup with the second attack force, and hopefully take over the island afterwards. But before they can do that, like I said, the Ant King just shows up out of nowhere, kills another S rank hunter in their ranks, and then goes one-on-one with Goto by asking whether or not he's the king. And Goto, of course, I guess he just arrogantly just says like he is the king before, like, not until like he senses the ant is like significantly more powerful than him, or in a way like has the same like almost same power level as Jinu at best, before what we could assume that he got killed off screen.
It seems that way, because after that we cut to Jinwoo showing up, and I guess he used that ability where he can just teleport or switch places with one of his shadows.
Yeah, his
and
shadow exchange, and then pretty much
Yeah.
that's where the episode ends off from there. What's interesting, like episode 11 is like one of the only episodes in the entire show where Jinu is not the main character.
Yeah, I mean, I like how it focused on the other hunters, but yeah, I mean, they don't. Of course, none of them really last long against this thing.
Yeah,
And especially it seems like Ryuji, I guess, like you said, might have already gotten taken care of off camera, unless like we see, exactly what happened to him in the next episode.
yeah. I mean, let's just say we'll find out for sure next episode
Yeah.
after this. But yeah, overall, it is a good episode. I can't say for sure whether or not they cut any stuff from the manhwa. I think maybe a few stuff in regards to what happened to the other hunters, but I would say it's mostly on par of what happened, from what I've read.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. I think we only have like 2 more episodes left, so we have the next episode, which will most likely have the confrontation between Jinyu and the Ant King, and then we will probably have, I would say, the last episode for the season will likely be an epilogue season that would potentially hype up what's going to happen for season 3.
So would you say that season 3 will probably be like maybe even the last season, or considering, I guess, like, is it like the final arc of the series, or?
If I did not think that this season was going to cover like this much material, than like a lot more than season 1 did, because like I mentioned before, they've cut out like a lot of content just to get to this point, and I wouldn't push it past them if they did the same thing for season 3. if that's the case,
Yeah.
then season 3 will most likely be its last season. Because I think 7, 8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It would have to cover maybe at least seven volumes for that. Unless if they're really,
That's quite a lot
if
of
they're
content to
because
cover.
okay, because this season is likely going to cover at least 4 volumes. Season 1 covered 3,
Yeah.
but season 3 it has. There's no way I can really see them covering 7 volumes in one season like that. If
Yeah, I guess unless it's longer.
I would say, well, I mean, we'll have to figure it out, later. But yeah, but we are at the end of where the Jeju Island arc is going to be headed by the next 2 episodes, and it looks like it is going to end up ending conclusively. Of course, soon afterwards, like I mentioned before, the last episode will most likely give us some hints of what's going to happen with the whole system and the thing with the monarchs.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about the episode, though. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, it was a good episode. Like it definitely just showcased how visceral and brutal the Ant King really is. I would say he's the most dangerous villain in solo leveling so far.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. But yeah, guys, that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.